The universe has a strange way of throwing you into moments you're never prepared for. I knew that the first time I ever visited the distant colony of Zephyr 9, but nothing, not my years of service, not my extensive experience with alien cultures, could have prepared me for the encounter that changed everything. It started on an ordinary morning, or at least as ordinary as mornings could be, when your daughter had insisted on tagging along to meet the delegation of Zalari traders. The Zalari were known throughout the quadrant as a tall, luminous, humanoid species with opalescent skin and long, flowing hair that shimmered like light through water. Their culture was complex, hierarchical, and bound by strict rules of etiquette. And for the first time in decades, a human father and his child were about to breach their ceremonial halls. I had expected polite greetings. I had expected formal bows. What I hadn't expected was the alien woman standing at the center of the room, a Zalari matriarch, perhaps 30 standard cycles old, with eyes like molten gold and hair that cascaded down her back like liquid starlight, to look directly at my daughter and pause. Beginning. "She's beautiful," I whispered under my breath as my daughter, little Lyra, twirled in her uniform. She was 8 standard years old but had a maturity and curiosity beyond her years. The light from the ceremonial chamber caught the strands of her hair, giving her an almost ethereal glow. The alien woman stiffened, as if my words had landed like a stone in her chest. Her gaze, intense and unwavering, followed every move Lyra made. I could sense the mixture of admiration and unease in her posture, the way her shoulders tightened and her hands curled slightly at her sides. "Dad," Lyra said softly, tugging at my sleeve, "why is she looking at me like that?" I opened my mouth to explain, but before I could, the alien matriarch cleared her throat, a sound like crystal wind blowing through a canyon. Then, in a voice that resonated in the chamber, she spoke directly to me. "You have a human child?" "Yes," I said cautiously. "Lyra." Her eyes softened slightly as she regarded my daughter, and then something remarkable happened. Lyra, who had been quietly observing this exchange, tilted her head and said, clear and confident, "So beautiful, Dad." The words hung in the air. The alien woman froze. Her golden eyes widened, a rare expression for her species, and her lips parted slightly. It was almost as if the universe had paused to let the words sink in. Middle, Part 1, First Contact. The tension was palpable. Zalari culture was strict. Compliments between species, especially directed toward a member of the opposite sex, were rare and potentially perilous. And yet, my daughter's innocent observation seemed to have bypassed all protocol. The matriarch blinked slowly and stepped back, her posture betraying confusion, embarrassment, and something I couldn't immediately name, curiosity. You speak with such clarity," she murmured. "Your resonance, it is untainted by the usual caution humans display." Lyra beamed, completely unaware of the political and cultural ramifications of her words. "Dad says I have to be honest with everyone," she replied simply. "Even if they look scary." Her honesty caused a ripple through the chamber. The Zalari attendants exchanged glances, and I could feel the undercurrent of approval and surprise. The matriarch's hands, delicate and glimmering like sculpted crystal, drifted to her chest. "Humans, they are so blunt," she said softly, almost to herself. Then she looked at me. "And you are the one who raised her?" "Yes," I said, pride swelling despite my nerves. "I did my best." She nodded slowly. Her gaze lingered on Lyra, then on me, and I realized something extraordinary. She was considering me, not as a human outsider, but as a parent. Middle, Part 2, The Lesson. Over the following hours, the matriarch, whose name I learned was Celaris, engaged us in ways I had never expected. She led Lyra to examine holographic displays of Zalari history, of star charts and alien fauna. She taught her to handle delicate ceremonial artifacts, the kind that could shatter with a single misstep. And Lyra, ever fearless, asked questions that no Zalari child or adult had dared ask aloud. At first, Celaris' responses were cautious, measured. She observed, corrected gently, and nodded. But slowly, as the afternoon passed, I noticed something remarkable. The alien matriarch began to smile. Truly smile. A soft, almost shy smile that spread warmth through the room like a sunrise. "You have raised her well," Celaris said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "She is fearless, yet gentle. Clever, yet kind. And she speaks truths humans often hide." Lyra looked at her curiously. "Why are you talking like that?" she asked. Celaris chuckled softly, a sound like wind chimes in a hidden canyon. "Because, little one, you have reminded me of something important. You remind me that beauty is not just skin or form. It is honesty, courage, empathy, and most of all, love." I watched my daughter tilt her head, processing this, before she smiled innocently. "So, I'm beautiful?" Celaris nodded, a genuine shimmer of emotion in her eyes. "Yes. Yes, you are." Middle, Part 3, The Revelation. As the day wore on, Celaris invited me to step aside while she spoke privately with my daughter. My heart raced. I had no idea what Zalari conversations entailed, or if they even allowed humans to overhear. "Lyra," Celaris said softly, crouching to meet her eyes, "do you understand why it is rare for humans to meet Zalari children like you?" "Yes," Lyra replied confidently. "Because you're scary." Celaris' lips twitched, fighting a laugh. "Partly. But also because many humans are afraid to see what is beautiful without being threatened." Lyra's eyes widened. "Really? But Dad says people can be scary too." "Yes," Celaris said, "but your honesty is a bridge. You see beyond fear." Then she did something completely unexpected. She reached out her hand to Lyra, delicate fingers brushing lightly against the child's. Lyra hesitated, then accepted the gesture. The contact, however subtle, seemed to resonate in ways I could not fully describe. It was as if two worlds, separated by light years and centuries of cultural divergence, had touched for the first time and both trembled with recognition. When she turned to me, her expression was unreadable, yet something in her eyes hinted at profound respect. "You have done well, human," she said. "You have given her a gift that cannot be taught. And for that, I am grateful." Middle, Part 4, The Bond. Over the next few hours, the dynamics between the three of us shifted. My daughter, unburdened by protocol or expectation, had carved a path of connection. Celaris, though still a matriarch of immense authority, was no longer distant or forbidding. She laughed, she shared stories of her homeworld, she even allowed Lyra to touch ceremonial relics that no outsider had ever held. And yet, the most profound moment came near the end of the day. Lyra, holding a small luminescent orb that Celaris had given her as a gift, looked at me and whispered, "So beautiful, Dad." It was a repetition, yes, but the meaning had deepened. This time, the words were not just a compliment to her father, they were an acknowledgement of the alien woman's trust, her acceptance, her willingness to see our humanity and embrace it. Celaris' eyes glimmered. Her golden gaze softened as she addressed me.